It was just a text message, one final reassurance to his grandmother. "It is snowing heavily here, but don't worry, I'll survive, you know." A few hours later, Storm De Beul was gone. A desperate SOS call at 2 a.m., a frantic rescue attempt, and a lone figure battling through an unforgiving storm. What really happened in the final moments of this young adventurer's life? And what terrifying discovery was left buried in the snow? This is the haunting true story of the YouTuber who filmed his own fate, Storm De Beul. Born with a restless spirit, Storm struggled to connect with the world around him. His father would later describe him as someone who had trouble connecting with people and liked being alone. But in solitude, he found purpose. At the age of 19, he discovered the world of backcountry survival and never looked back. Inspired by countless hours of YouTube videos, he taught himself how to survive in the wild, how to read the land, how to embrace the unknown. It wasn't long before he turned the camera on himself. Storm created his YouTube channel, Storm Outdoorsy, a digital journal of his experiences deep in the heart of nature. From dense forests to icy tundras, his videos transported his audience into a world of quiet resilience. He didn't just document survival, he lived it. His subscribers watched in awe as he camped without shelter, battled the elements, and thrived in conditions that would send most people running for warmth. What made Storm different was his authenticity. He wasn't out there for fame. He wasn't chasing viral trends. He was simply a man who belonged to the wilderness, sharing his journey with those who understood the call of the wild. But adventure comes with risks, and for Storm, each journey pushed him further, testing his limits in ways even he couldn't have imagined. His final trek into the frozen wilderness of Sweden would be his most harrowing yet, a journey that would tragically become his last. For Storm De Beul, adventure wasn't just a passion, it was a way of life. Every journey into the wilderness was a test, a chance to prove to himself that he could endure whatever nature threw his way. But as the autumn of 2024 set in, he prepared for what would become his most dangerous expedition yet, a solo trek into the remote wilderness of northern Sweden. Lapland, an unforgiving land where winter arrives early, where the cold is merciless, and where survival depends on preparation and resilience. But Storm had no doubts. He had done this before. He was no stranger to solitude, no stranger to the cold. With his gear packed and his determination unwavering, he set off on his trek. For weeks, he traveled alone, documenting his experiences as he always did. Each day, he hiked through snow-covered forests, across frozen rivers, setting up camp in the heart of the wilderness. But the weather was shifting. Temperatures were dropping rapidly. Storm was no longer just battling the cold. He was walking straight into the jaws of an approaching blizzard. Then, on October 28th, Storm sent a message to his grandmother. It was brief, but haunting in retrospect. "It is snowing heavily here, but don't worry, I'll survive, you know." Words meant to reassure, but words that now carry the weight of tragedy. No one knew it then, but Storm was facing a crisis. The snowstorm was growing stronger, the temperatures plummeting. He was miles from his car, alone in the freezing wilderness. And then, in the early hours of October 29th, everything went wrong. At exactly 2 a.m., Storm sent out a distress signal to Swedish emergency services. He was injured, he needed help, but help was still far away. A rescue team was immediately dispatched, but the storm was relentless. Visibility was near zero. The freezing wind howled through the trees. And somewhere out there, in the darkness, Storm was fighting to stay alive. A distress call in the middle of the night. A lone traveler stranded in a snowstorm. Every second mattered. But in the vast, frozen wilderness of Swedish Lapland, finding Storm was a race against time, one that was becoming increasingly difficult by the minute. When Swedish emergency services received Storm's distress signal at 2 a.m. on October 29th, they acted immediately. A search and rescue team was dispatched, navigating through treacherous conditions in an attempt to reach him. But the storm had already consumed the land, with gusts strong enough to uproot trees and temperatures plunging to -6 degrees Celsius, feeling like -18 degrees Celsius with wind chill. It was a battle against nature itself. Storm had told emergency services that he was wounded and trying to reach his car, which was parked 9 miles from his last campsite. Somewhere along that route, in the dead of night, in whiteout conditions, he was struggling to survive. His parents, Elizabeth Rademacher and Boot De Beul, were unaware of what was unfolding. But back home, they felt something was wrong. When the local police finally called, their worst fears began to take shape. The rescue team pressed on, but it was too late. On October 30th, Storm's body was found. He was lying in the snow, somewhere along the path between his campsite and his car. His mother would later say, trees were uprooted that night. Maybe his tent also blew away, and he had no choice but to start walking. But his feet and lower legs were frozen. His hands weren't. He might still have had his hand warmers with him. And since he had broken his nose, it's possible he fell too. He must have suffered for a long time and died alone. I keep imagining his last moments. It devastates me. The family was left waiting. They clung to the hope that he might still be alive, that maybe, just maybe, he had made it through the night. But when the call finally came, reality sank in. His mother recalls, the local police officer called to say that there was a problem in Sweden. All day long, we hoped that they would find him alive. In fact, they had already found him, but the news had not yet been passed on to our police. It was only a day later that we were informed. Storm had ventured into nature to seek solitude, to challenge himself, to live life on his own terms. But nature had taken everything from him that night. Storm De Beul was not just another traveler seeking adventure. He was a storyteller, a wanderer, a young man who felt most at home in the vast, untamed landscapes of Northern Europe. His YouTube channel, Storm Outdoorsy, was more than just a collection of videos. It was a window into his soul, a legacy captured through the lens of his camera. In the days following his passing, Storm's online presence became a digital memorial. His videos, once viewed for inspiration and escapism, took on a new weight. Each frame now carried echoes of a life that ended too soon. Then, something deeply moving happened. Among the thousands of comments, 2 stood out. Messages from his own parents, forever marking his final uploads with words of love, grief, and loss. Rest in peace, my dear beautiful son. Thank you, dear people, for your beautiful words and condolences. For those who mock or laugh at this, Storm stood so strong at such a young age. He was so brave until the bitter end. He had an eye for everything that so many have forgotten, and he knew how to cherish it, learn from it. His endless proud father, Bout. And then, his mother, who had lost her only child, left a message of heartbreaking simplicity. For all the viewers here, Storm passed away last Tuesday night while trying to reach his car. He didn't make it through the snowstorm, and the SOS service couldn't fly because of the storm. My baby was only 22 and started back and bike packing at the age of 19. He never had troubles before. This was bad luck. A young man who lived by his own rules, who sought the beauty of the wilderness, was now gone. But his voice, his journey, and his spirit live on, etched forever in the footage he left behind. But one question still lingers. Was this tragedy preventable, or was it simply fate? Storm De Beul's tragic end was not just a personal loss for his family, friends, and viewers. It was also a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of the wild. His journey, his passion, was fueled by the desire to experience nature in its rawest form, but even the most experienced adventurers are never truly in control. Many people wonder, what went wrong? Could he have survived? Could he have been saved? Storm had spent much of the year hiking solo in the Jokkmokk region, a remote area of Swedish Lapland. On the night of October 29th, he was caught in a devastating blizzard, facing temperatures as low as -18 degrees Celsius with wind chill. His distress signal at 2 a.m. indicated he was wounded and needed medical help. But by then, nature had already sealed his fate. His mother speculated that his tent may have been ripped away by the storm, leaving him exposed to the brutal cold. His feet and lower legs were frozen. His nose was broken, possibly from a fall. He fought for survival, but the elements showed no mercy. Survival experts emphasize key lessons from cases like Storm's. First, when faced with extreme weather, shelter is your only lifeline. Second, rescue signals should be sent as soon as danger arises, not when it's too late. And third, sometimes, even with the right skills, nature simply does not grant second chances. Storm's story is not just about tragedy, it is about passion, about a young man who dared to embrace the world in its purest form. His life, though brief, was one of courage, exploration, and deep love for the outdoors. But in the wild, survival is never guaranteed. If there's one thing we can take from Storm De Beul's journey, it's to respect nature, prepare for its unpredictability, and never take its power for granted. His legacy lives on, not only in his videos, but in the hearts of those who followed his path. Rest in peace, Storm. The wild was your home, and now it holds you forever.